Take a listen to this clip. Riley Gaines totally torching one Brittney Griner. It's really not fair. It's just not right.
Following the dismissal of Brittney Griner's contentious remarks against Caitlin Clark, Riley Gaines just dropped a bombshell on Griner and the whole WNBA establishment. Do you believe Riley Gaines was correct to call out Brittney Griner and the WNBA's blatant double standards, or should she have avoided getting involved in basketball drama? Gaines spoke up and said what everyone was thinking. The former Olympic swimmer didn't hold back, and now the league is trying to contain the damage.
I have never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA. A few weeks ago, I made this video highlighting how it appears Brittney Griner said bleep white girl after fouling out in a game against Indiana Fever, the team that Caitlin Clark plays for. Some people like Jamel Hill, former ESPN host, says that no, she didn't say bleep white girl. She says bleep whack call, to which she then went on to call me a grifter for even pointing this out, but besides the point. You can watch and make up your own mind as to what it appears Brittney Griner is.
Holy smokes. People while the WNBA was busy doing damage control and acting like that viral video, Riley Gaines just reminded everyone why she has become one of the most daring voices in sports. There was no video of Brittney Griner. Since the mainstream sports media has been performing backflips in an attempt to spin this story, let's start with what truly happened here. Gaines took the initiative and provided a reality check that has the entire league reeling. After Brittney Griner was sent off during a game against the Indiana Fever, a video of her making what many people believe to be disparaging remarks about Caitlin Clark went viral. The audio captures Griner using a racial slur and calling Clark trash, among other terrible things.
Thursday night, Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream played. Indiana Fever is where Caitlin Clark plays. Atlanta Dream is where Brittney Griner plays. Now you tell me what it looks like Brittney Griner is saying here. For a little bit of context, this was in the fourth quarter after Brittney Griner fouled out against Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever would go on to win by 5. Now I'm going to tell you what I think she said. Let's play it back. Looks to me like she is saying trash and then calling Caitlin Clark a bleep white girl. Just a reminder, this is who Joe Biden traded for the Russian merchant of death. So many WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark so much when she is the best thing that could have happened to the league. And she's not the best thing that happened to the league because she's white. It's because she's a good player. It's because she's the best player. Now, imagine if Caitlin Clark said the inverse of this. It would be reprehensible, condemned, and understandably so. You've got all of these individual players. You have sports commentators, people like Ryan Clark, who constantly tout of the racial tensions that exist in the league, when in reality, they are the ones perpetuating and amplifying these racial tensions with their anti-white hatred for Caitlin Clark.
Now, some defenders have attempted to argue that Griner was referring to the referee's call, calling it a whack call and trash, but the truth is that when you watch the video and observe Griner's timing and body language, it's pretty obvious what most people are hearing, and Riley Gaines wasn't going to overlook this.
Wait to find out. Ask Brittney Griner. However, no one has done that except for Outkick. It's been over 2 weeks since Griner said this. Instead, the WNBA was investigating a bogus race hoax made up by Angel Reese about Indiana Fever fans. And I say bogus because they found no evidence that supports Angel Reese's claims. So we at Outkick applied for media credentials to cover Brittney Griner's team, the Atlanta Dreams, game on June 6th, to which, shocker, they denied us. We've never had trouble getting media credentials with any professional sports league in the past, but wouldn't you know, now they suddenly have very limited space, which is total baloney. They just want to suppress any sort of uncomfortable inquiries from media. Regardless, we at Outkick are going to keep asking the tough questions, the questions that people want the answer to. And if you do call yourself a reporter or a journalist from an outlet like ESPN or any other sports outlet for that matter, and you have access to these settings and you're not asking those questions, you're really no reporter or journalist at all, at least not one with...
Brittney Griner appeared to call Caitlin Clark trash and a fuzzing white girl after fouling out last night. Just a reminder, this is who we traded for the Russian merchant of death. Now imagine if Clark had said the inverse. Boom, that right there is what we call a knockout punch, delivered with surgical precision. Gaines took to social media and completely slammed Griner with a post that got right to the heart of the issue. Gaines didn't just call out the apparent slur. She reminded everyone of the context that makes this whole situation even more absurd. Riley Gaines was just warming up when the media outlet Outkick attempted to obtain media credentials to question Griner directly about the remarks, but the WNBA rejected the request, and that's when Riley Gaines truly let them have it. The US government literally traded a dangerous arms dealer to get Griner back from Russia, and this is how she repays that sacrifice.
A lot of people are talking about the Olympics, but not for the right reasons, so let me shed some light into a story that not too many people are talking about. I'm sure a majority of you know who Riley Gaines is and who is Brittney Griner. So Riley Gaines laid into Brittney Griner for kneeling during the national anthem. You don't have to sing or anything, but you need to show some respect for the country that saved you from a Russian gulag. True. If y'all forgot, Brittney Griner was a 32-year-old that was arrested in Moscow on February 17, accused of entering Russia with a vape cartridge containing cannabis oil, which is illegal in Russia. She was sentenced to 9 years in Russian labor. Obviously, this was a whole political thing. This was immediately after Russia invaded Ukraine. However, America fought for her and got her back in a one-on-one exchange with another prisoner, but that prisoner is one of the biggest arms dealers ever, Victor Bout. So you bring something illegal to a country, that country arrests you, and then America does everything to try and get you back here just for you to kneel during the national anthem?
To Fox News with the devastating statement, "I've never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA," Gaines completely damaged the WNBA's reputation. She then explained why the league's actions are so detrimental and hypocritical. The WNBA will look into fictitious claims against Caitlin Clark fans that turn out to be entirely untrue. They will make statements, launch investigations, and put on a show of taking unsupported allegations seriously. But when there is actual video evidence that one of their players may have made offensive remarks about their biggest star, they abruptly decide they are too busy to look into it. To make matters worse, when journalists attempt to ask simple questions about the incident, the league denies them access. Riley Gaines called them out for it in the most public manner possible. What makes Gaines's intervention so potent is that she is speaking from a position of moral authority that cannot be disregarded. The swimmer who was made to compete against biological males in women's contests and had the guts to speak out when others remained silent is someone who has personal experience with unequal treatment in sports. Gaines knows what it's like to be attacked for telling uncomfortable truths. She's been vilified by the mainstream sports media for defending women's sports and standing up for fairness. So when she sees the WNBA protecting certain players while throwing others under the bus, she recognizes the pattern immediately. The brilliance of Gaines's statement about trading for the Russian merchant of death cannot be overstated. She's reminding everyone that Victor Bout was literally called the merchant of death because of his role in international arms dealing. This was a man who helped fuel conflicts around the world, and the United States traded him for Brittney Griner. Now, reasonable people can disagree about whether that trade was worth it, but what's not debatable is that it represented a massive commitment by the US government to bring Griner home. The idea that someone who benefited from that level of support would then turn around and make derogatory comments about another American athlete is pretty stunning, and Gaines's point about imagining if the roles were reversed is absolutely devastating. Can you imagine what would happen if Caitlin Clark had been caught on video making similar comments about Brittney Griner? The media would be calling for her head sponsors would be dropping her left and right. The WNBA would probably suspend her indefinitely, but because it's Griner making the comments and Clark receiving them, suddenly everyone wants to play the "we can't really tell what she said" game. The double standard is so obvious that even casual observers are starting to notice. What's particularly brilliant about Gaines's approach is how she's connected this incident to the broader problems plaguing the WNBA. She's not just criticizing one player for one moment, she's exposing an entire organizational culture that prioritizes protecting certain narratives over basic fairness and accountability. The WNBA's credibility is severely damaged by the fact that Outkick was refused media credentials for attempting to ask reasonable questions about the incident. The league is purportedly a professional sports league that relies on media coverage and fan interaction. But when journalists attempt to do their jobs and ask basic questions, the league shuts them out. Gaines perfectly captured this when she pointed out that, aside from Outkick, no one in the sports media has actually tried to get answers from Griner herself. Everyone else is happy to speculate and offer excuses. But when someone tries to get to the truth, the WNBA blocks access. This is the kind of behavior that erodes credibility and alienates fans. This occurred immediately after the WNBA had invested time and resources in looking into blatantly false allegations made against Caitlin Clark fans. As a result, the WNBA will mobilize to look into fake controversies, but refuse to address actual ones that are captured on camera. What's even more embarrassing for the WNBA is how Gaines brought attention to the fact that prominent media figures are attempting to reinterpret clear audio and video evidence, claiming that Griner said something completely different from what many people believe she said. As Gaines noted, this is the ideal response to these attempts at gaslighting. Don't tell people what they're seeing and hearing. Let them watch the video and decide for themselves. The WNBA could easily handle this situation properly by applying the same standards to everyone. For example, if they are going to look into unsubstantiated claims against fans, they should look into substantiated claims against players. If they are going to allow media access for some stories, they should allow it for all legitimate journalistic inquiries. However, rather than adopting that simple approach, they have put their hypocrisy on full display for everyone to see, and Riley Gaines simply turned up the ante so that no one could miss it. Gaines's intervention is even more crucial in light of the controversy's larger backdrop. Caitlin Clark has been the greatest thing to happen to the WNBA in decades. She has attracted millions of new fans, packed arenas across the nation, and brought more positive attention to women's basketball than any other player in history. However, rather than defending and celebrating their biggest star, the league appears more interested in appeasing players who are angry about her success. They are willing to look into fictitious scandals that could harm Clark's reputation while ignoring actual ones that could harm other players. Riley Gaines is calling out the WNBA's self-imploding approach, pointing out that they're actively working against their own interests. They have a generational talent that could take the league to new heights, but they're more concerned with protecting the feelings of players who can't handle her success gains. Gaines also recognizes that the WNBA seems to have forgotten that fans won't put up with blatant unfairness indefinitely, and the new audiences Caitlin Clark has brought to women's basketball won't stick around if they believe their favorite player is being treated unfairly by the league. She has witnessed firsthand how sports organizations can turn on their own athletes in the name of political correctness or narrative protection, and she knows what it's like to be blamed for advocating for fundamental justice. For this reason, she sees a pattern in the WNBA's treatment of Caitlin Clark and isn't afraid to call it out. The league's response has only strengthened her argument. The WNBA's approach to handling awkward questions rather than resolving problems is demonstrated by the denial of media credentials to Outkick, which is especially striking. Directly, they merely attempt to keep people from inquiring about them. It's a tactic that will undoubtedly backfire, even though it might succeed temporarily. Riley Gaines ultimately just sped up that timeline by drawing national attention to the WNBA's selective enforcement and media manipulation. As a result, everyone is aware that the league barred journalists from accessing a contentious incident involving one of its players in order to ask them legitimate questions. The way that Gaines presented the WNBA as an organization dedicated to self-imploding may have been the most damaging aspect of her criticism. That isn't just an insult. It accurately describes what we're seeing. The league has a fantastic opportunity with Caitlin Clark's popularity, but they're wasting it by causing needless controversy and displaying blatant favoritism. What's particularly effective about Gaines's approach is how she's connected this specific incident to broader patterns of behavior. She's not just complaining about one.